I am washing his scent from these sheets again. Third time this week. My hands tremble, water too hot, but still I scrub. The vanilla cedar won't leave. It sinks deep into the cotton, into my skin, into my lungs. It's in my head. It's in my chest. It's everywhere. The scent clings to fabric the way his promises once clung to my heart. Warm, heavy, impossible to shake off. I press my forehead to the damp cloth. My breath comes uneven. Why he keep coming back if he don't want me? Why he mark my bed with his scent but never my neck? Steam rises around me, curling against my face, making my eyes sting. I tell myself it's from the heat. It's not. 3 months ago, everything was different. I was nobody, just a tired college student juggling classes and a part-time desk job at his company. I'd watch him from behind the glass doors of the conference room, the alpha CEO who owned every inch of the air he walked through. Untouchable, cold, eyes like storm clouds that never cleared. He didn't look at omegas like me. Omegas were invisible to him. Or that's what I thought. That night, it was raining. I remember the sound on the office windows, steady, drowning the city noise. Most of the staff had already gone. I stayed late, sorting endless files because my rent needed paying. I didn't know he was still there. He came into the records room without a sound. The door clicked shut. I turned and froze. His tie was loosened, his collar open. There was a faint flush on his skin, his breathing heavier than usual. I didn't understand at first, not until the sharp spike of pheromones hit me like lightning. Vanilla, cedar, and something darker beneath. My throat went dry. "You should go home," he said, voice lower than I'd ever heard. But his eyes didn't match the words. His pupils were blown wide, fixed on me in a way that made my knees feel weak. I mumbled something maybe okay, but I didn't move. My body wouldn't listen. His hand gripped the doorframe like he was holding himself back. Now, the word came out rough, strained. That's when I realized, his rut. It wasn't supposed to happen. Alphas like him had schedules, medication, control. But this, he took one step toward me. My pulse jumped. The air between us thickened with heat and scent. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My instincts screamed to run. My body leaned forward instead. He caught my wrist before I even knew I'd moved. His touch burned. Not harsh, just firm enough that my skin buzzed under it. "You smell." He cut himself off, jaw tightening. I felt it then, the low rumble in his chest, the weight of his pheromones pulling me under. The rest, I don't talk about, not even to myself. But when I woke hours later, alone in that same room, the rain had stopped. My clothes were crumpled, my hair tangled, and the scent of vanilla cedar was all over me. My neck was bare, no mark, and he never mentioned it, not once. The days after were worse than the night itself. I kept my head down at work, heart pounding every time I felt him walk past my desk. He didn't look at me, didn't speak, just avoided me, like I was something fragile he might break if he touched again. But then, the first time he came back was almost 2 weeks later. I'd just finished laundry, sheets still warm, smelling of nothing but detergent. I went to bed early. I didn't even hear him unlock my door. I woke to wait beside me, heat at my back, a hand sliding under my shirt, the scent flooding me again. My body reacted before my mind could. He didn't say my name, didn't kiss my lips, just buried his face in my neck and breathed like he'd been holding it in for days. And then he left before sunrise. That was the pattern, always the same, never calling, never warning. He'd come in the night, touch me like I was air he couldn't live without, and disappear before morning light could catch him. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was just instinct, that I was just a body in his rut's shadow. But the truth is, I started waiting for him. I started sleeping with the lamp on, half hoping, half dreading the sound of the door. And every time he left, I'd wash the sheets, like I could wash away the part of me that still reached for him in the dark. Tonight, the water is cooling in the basin. My fingers are wrinkled, my arms aching, but I keep scrubbing. The smell won't fade. It never does. The doorbell rings. My chest tightens. I freeze. My hands drip soapy water onto the floor. It rings again, softer this time, like whoever's outside doesn't want the neighbors to hear. I move slowly, bare feet silent against the wood. Through the peephole, it's him. Rain beads on his hair. His suit jacket is missing, shirt clinging to his skin. His eyes, they're not cold tonight. They're dark, hungry. My fingers hover over the lock. My breath shakes. I hate myself for the way my heart lifts. When I open the door, his scent hits me harder than the rain's chill. Why? My voice breaks before I finish. He doesn't answer. He steps inside, closing the door with his back, trapping me between him and the wall. You didn't answer my calls, he murmurs, low, almost accusing. I didn't hear them. His eyes narrow slightly, like he knows. His hand lifts, brushing my damp hair back, fingers lingering at the side of my throat. His thumb rests over the place a mark would be, the place he's never touched with teeth. You smell like detergent, he says quietly, almost to himself. I hate it. My breath catches. Then stop making me wash the sheets. Something flickers in his gaze. Pain, anger, I can't tell. He leans in, forehead against mine. His scent swells around me, rich and overwhelming. I can't stay away, he whispers, voice breaking just enough that I feel it in my chest. And for the first time, I believe him. But belief doesn't change the way he'll be gone before sunrise. I close my eyes, letting the heat pull me under anyway. Because even if the sheets will smell like him tomorrow, even if I'll have to scrub until my hands ache, for tonight, I'll let myself breathe in the vanilla cedar and pretend it means something. Before the incident, I was invisible to him, just another employee. The one who brought coffee, who made copies, who answered calls no one else wanted. I blended into the background, just the way I needed to, but I noticed everything about him. I watched him from the corners of my eyes, how his jaw would tense during meetings, how his posture changed when he was thinking, how his scent would shift subtly when he was under stress. Vanilla, cedar, it was his scent, something familiar, like a comfort I couldn't quite reach. Other omegas feared him. He was an untouchable alpha, ruthless in business, colder than any winter wind. But I was drawn to him, like a moth to flame. I never understood it, never questioned it. I simply followed. For 6 months I watched him, never daring to speak to him outside of my duties, stealing quick glances, always pretending not to care. But little by little, something inside me began to shift. I told myself it was nothing more than curiosity, admiration, nothing more than respect for the man who never even noticed me. But then one day he started noticing me. It started small. At first it was just little things, asking me to bring him a particular document, or requesting my presence in meetings. His eyes would always linger for just a moment too long on my neck, on the place where my gland pulsed, where my scent naturally rose. He didn't hide it. The way his gaze would flick to that spot, then snap back up to my eyes, it was almost like he was testing me, watching for a reaction. It was the first time I thought just maybe he cared a little. How foolish I was. I remember the first time he asked for me specifically. I had just finished making my rounds, distributing files, when he looked up from his desk, and without looking at anyone else, said my name. Send him, he said. I need those figures from the last quarter. The entire room went quiet, and for a moment I thought I might faint. His voice had carried the weight of something unspoken, something that was both an order and a request. I didn't understand it then. I told myself that it meant nothing. But every time I went into his office after that, I felt it. The way he would glance at me, the way his eyes would trace the lines of my body, like he was studying me. There was no sign of emotion, no kindness behind those eyes, just cold, controlled observation. But there was something else too, something dangerous. And then there was the way he smelled. The scent of vanilla cedar always seemed to follow him, curling in the air around him. Even when he didn't say a word, even when he didn't touch me, I could always feel his presence. It was like a weight I couldn't shake, something that clung to my skin even after I left the office. His scent followed me home, to my bed, into my dreams. I tried to ignore it. I tried to push it away, but every time I was near him, it was as if my body betrayed me. I could feel my gland throb under my skin, aching to release, to pull me closer, but I wouldn't let it. I couldn't. But it wasn't just his scent. It was his touch, too. There was a moment, late one night, when I was alone in the office, finishing a report. He had stayed behind as well as usual, and he walked into the room just as I was about to pack up. He stood near my desk, silent for a long time, watching me. "Working late again?" he asked, his voice low, his gaze lingering on me for a beat longer than usual. I nodded, forcing my hands to stay still, not showing how much my pulse quickened at his proximity. He stepped closer and I froze. His scent enveloped me, filling the space between us. I could feel the heat of his body radiating, and before I knew it, his hand brushed against mine. It was brief, barely a touch, but it felt like fire. It felt like every part of me was alive, every nerve buzzing with energy. My heart beat faster, and I couldn't catch my breath. He didn't apologize. He just nodded as if the moment had been nothing more than an accident and walked away. But it wasn't an accident for me. From that night on, I became hyper-aware of him. I couldn't help it. I would notice the smallest things, the way his shoulders would tense when he was thinking, the way his hand would curl into a fist when he was frustrated. He was a man of control, always calm on the outside, but I knew there was something deeper beneath, something he kept locked away. And I was obsessed. I started seeking him out, even when I didn't need to. I would linger near his office, waiting for the right moment to pass by, hoping for a glance, a word, anything. It became a game, but it wasn't a game for him. It wasn't long before he started calling for me more often. Send him to my office. Tell him to bring the reports. It was always specific, always directed at me. The others noticed it. They whispered behind my back, but it didn't matter. It was him calling for me, and every time my heart would race. His gaze would always fall on my neck, on my gland, and I couldn't help but wonder if he was marking me. How foolish I was. I should have known better, but I didn't. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, he cared. That maybe, in his own way, he was starting to see me. But the truth was different. I was just a convenience to him, a body in the room, nothing more. The more I yearned, the more he pulled away. He would stand in front of me, his presence overwhelming, but his words always careful, controlled. He never spoke more than necessary. He never let his guard down. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could stay distant, keep my emotions hidden. But I couldn't. Every moment we spent together, every word, every glance pulled me deeper into a hole I couldn't climb out of. And the worst part? He knew it. He knew exactly what he was doing to me. That night, the building was so quiet, I could hear the hum of the lights above us. It was long past the hour anyone should be here. Everyone else had gone. Just me, trying to finish the last of the reports, and him. I didn't know he was still in his office until the air changed. It happened suddenly, the scent hitting me like a wave, thick and heavy, curling through the corridors. Vanilla cedar, but sharper now. Raw, dangerous. My body reacted before my mind could catch up, my pulse skipping, heat flushing my skin. My fingers tightened on the file in my hands, but they trembled. I knew what it meant. His rut. It was sudden, uncontained. He should have been at home, medicated, locked away from temptation. But he wasn't. He was here, with me. I was halfway to the elevator when I heard his voice. Stop. The word was low, rough, almost a growl. It slid down my spine and froze me where I stood. I turned slowly. He stood in the shadows of the hallway, tie gone, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, chest rising and falling too fast. His eyes, darker than I'd ever seen, pupils wide, drinking me in like I was the only thing in the world. Get out, he said again, but this time his voice broke in the middle, like the words were tearing at him. I should have run. I didn't. One step, and he was in front of me. His hand shot out, fingers curling around my wrist. The heat from his palm sank into my skin, spreading like fire through my veins. I felt my knees weaken, my breath stutter. Don't. I started, but the rest tangled in my throat as his scent crashed over me, stronger now, flooding the small space between us. I could taste it, sweet and earthy, threaded with something desperate. He was close enough that I could hear the faint hitch in his breathing, see the way his jaw trembled like he was fighting himself. I can smell you, he murmured, voice shaking. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My body was already leaning toward him, drawn in by instinct, by something I didn't have the strength to resist. His free hand lifted, fingers brushing the side of my neck. His thumb pressed over my gland, and my vision blurred. The touch sent a rush of heat through me, sharp enough to make my chest ache. You need to go, he said, but his hand didn't move away. Then let me go, I whispered. He didn't. Instead, he pulled me closer until my chest brushed his. His breath was warm against my ear. I'm sorry, he whispered, and it sounded like a confession, like a prayer. Then his mouth was on my neck. The first press of his teeth made me gasp. My hand flying to his shoulder, nails digging into the fabric of his shirt. Pain and pleasure knotted together, spreading through me in a dizzying rush. My body arched into him before I could think. When his teeth sank fully into my gland, the world shattered. It was not gentle. It was claiming, fierce, as if he wanted to leave proof deep under my skin that no one could erase. My fingers clenched in his shirt, my head falling back against the wall. I could hear his breath, ragged and desperate, feel the tremor in his muscles as he held me pinned. It burned. Gods, it burned. But beneath the pain there was a pull, a connection, something hot and molten sinking into the core of me. I could feel him in my bones, in my pulse. And then, I felt it. Something wet on my skin. It took me a second to understand. It wasn't blood. It was his tears. I froze, the sound in my throat dying. His body shook faintly against mine, and the sharpness of the bite softened, his teeth lingering but no longer driving deeper. His forehead pressed against my neck, his breath warm and uneven. Why? Why was he crying? This was what he wanted, wasn't it? This was what alphas did when they claimed someone. So why did it feel like he was breaking even as he marked me? My hand hovered in the air before I finally let it rest lightly against the back of his head. His hair was damp, whether from sweat or rain, I didn't know. Why? I whispered, not sure if I meant the tears, the bite, or all of it. He didn't answer. When he pulled back, I saw it in his eyes, the rawness, the guilt, the hunger still there but wrapped in something heavier. The mark throbbed under my skin, my whole body humming from the connection. I could still taste his scent in the back of my throat. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but instead he stepped back. Just one step, but it felt like a mile. "You should go home," he said finally, voice hoarse. I laughed softly, bitter. "You bite me and now you tell me to go home?" His jaw tightened. "It's better this way." "For you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "For both of us." Liar. I didn't say it. I just stood there feeling the ache in my neck, the way my whole body still leaned toward him, betraying me. He didn't touch me again. Didn't try to explain. Just turned away, walking down the hall without looking back. I stood there long after he was gone, my hand pressed over the fresh mark. It was still warm, still tingling, still pulsing with his scent. I hated that part of me already clung to it, that I didn't want it to fade. I hated that no matter how much it hurt, I wanted him to come back. And I hated most of all that I knew he would. His rut consumed us both for 3 days. The first night, I thought I would break. His scent was everywhere, saturating the air until it was heavy in my lungs, in my skin, in my bones. Vanilla cedar, thick and darkened with heat, wrapped around me like invisible chains, chains I didn't want to escape from. Every breath I took was him. Every shiver in my body answered to him. We stayed in his private office. The door locked, the blinds drawn. The world outside stopped existing. His desk became the first battlefield, the couch the second. I lost track of time, of hours, of the thin line between day and night. All I knew was his hands on me, his mouth claiming me over and over, his voice a low, raw growl in my ear. "Mine," he said, again and again, between kisses that left me dizzy, between bites that sent shockwaves down my spine. Sometimes the word was sharp, almost angry. Sometimes it was softer, like a plea. But it was always there, mine. His rut was relentless. Every time I thought he was spent, every time my body was trembling and my mind half floating, he would pull me back, drag me into him again. My instincts stopped resisting after the first night. The omega in me gave in completely, sinking into his alpha dominance like it was the only place I was meant to be. But there were quiet moments too. Moments when the fever in his eyes dimmed, when his breathing slowed, when he simply held me close on the couch with my head against his chest. Those moments felt almost human. It was in those lulls that I saw it. The guilt. He would look down at me, his thumb brushing the bite mark on my neck, the bond burning faintly between us, and his gaze would waver.
"This is wrong," he whispered once, his voice low, frayed at the edges.
"Then let me go," I murmured back, even though my body curled closer to him. His arms tightened instantly. "I can't," and he didn't, not once. The second day bled into the third. Every time his rut surged, the bond between us deepened. It was more than just heat, more than just instinct. It was a pull so strong I could feel it even when his hands weren't on me. I could sense his mood in the way the air shifted, in the way his scent sharpened or softened. I started to feel tethered. By the third day, the exhaustion in my limbs was bone deep, but the thought of stepping outside that office felt wrong. Here I belonged to him completely. There was no pretending otherwise. My scent was tangled with his, impossible to separate. My body carried his mark fresh and raw, throbbing faintly with each beat of my heart. Once, in the middle of the night, I woke to find him watching me. The moonlight through the blinds caught in his eyes, making them look almost vulnerable. "What?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He shook his head, but his fingers slid into my hair, combing it back gently. "You don't understand what this means." I swallowed. "Then tell me." But he didn't. He kissed me instead, slow and deep, until my thoughts dissolved again. By the time the rut finally began to fade, I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. My body was marked in more places than I could count, each one a silent declaration of possession. My mind was fogged with the memory of his scent, the weight of his hands, the sound of his voice claiming me over and over. When the fever left his eyes completely, he didn't push me away. He still kept me close, his hand resting at the small of my back like it belonged there. The silence between us felt different now, not empty, charged. I knew deep down that outside this room, things would not be the same. He might go back to pretending, to avoiding, to locking whatever this was behind a wall. But here, in these last moments before the world could intrude again, I let myself believe. Finally, I thought, I belonged somewhere. Somewhere that smelled like vanilla and cedar. Somewhere that felt like his hands around me, his voice in my ear. Somewhere that was his. Even if it would never last. The morning after his rut ended, sunlight came through the blinds in pale strips, cutting across the floor. My body still ached everywhere he touched me, my skin carrying every mark, every reminder. I thought maybe this time it would be different. Maybe the wall between us had cracked enough for something real to slip through. But when he came out of the bathroom, hair neatly in place, shirt buttoned, tie looped perfectly around his neck, he didn't look at me like I was his anymore. "Forget this happened," he said flatly, adjusting the knot in his tie as if my scent wasn't still clinging to him, as if I hadn't spent 3 days drowning in his. I sat there, wrapped in the office blanket, the bond throbbing faintly under my skin, and said nothing. Because if I opened my mouth, I might beg. For weeks after that he avoided me. No calls, no late-night visits, not even a glance when we passed in the hallway. The distance felt like a wound that wouldn't close. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I didn't need him. But every night I'd lie in bed and feel the faint echo of his pheromones in my memory, the way they wrapped around me like heat in the dark. Then one night it all broke. I was walking home late, the streets empty except for the hum of neon signs and the occasional passing car. The air smelled faintly of rain. I didn't hear them coming, just a sudden hand over my mouth, the sting of something sharp in my neck and the world tilting away. When I woke, the air was damp and cold. The light came from a single bulb hanging above me, swinging faintly. I was tied to a chair, wrists chafing against rough rope. The basement smelled of rust, mold, and strangers. Alpha scents, sharp and aggressive, circling me like wolves around prey. Their voices came and went, muffled through the haze in my head. I caught pieces. My name, his name. The word bond spat like a weapon. That's when I understood. His rival had found out. They knew what I was to him, what he'd made me. And now I was leverage. Hours passed. I didn't know if it was night or day anymore. I sat in the dark, my mind drifting between fear and numbness. He wouldn't come, I told myself. Why would he? He told me to forget. Maybe this was easier for him to let me vanish and take the problem with me. Then, I smelled him. It started faint, a thread of vanilla cedar curling through the damp air. My chest tightened. My heart stuttered. It grew thicker, heavier, until it was a storm pressing against my lungs. It wasn't just his scent, it was rage, raw and scorching, threaded through every molecule. The alphas guarding the door shifted nervously, their scents spiking sharp with unease. One of them muttered something, but the words broke off when the door slammed open. He filled the space like he owned it, like the walls themselves had been waiting for him. His eyes found me instantly, scanning every inch, locking on the rope around my wrists. No police, no backup, just him. One of the kidnappers moved, maybe to speak, maybe to run. His pheromones hit the room like lightning. It was suffocating in the best and worst way. Heat, dominance, possession so thick I could feel it pulling at my heartbeat, demanding my body remember exactly who I belonged to. "Touch what's mine again," he said, his voice low and terrifyingly calm, "and I'll destroy everything you love." No one spoke after that. He crossed the room in 3 long steps, crouched in front of me, and his hands were suddenly on my face, tilting it up. His scent wrapped around me fully now, drowning out the others until the world was just him. "Did they hurt you?" His voice was softer now, but his hands trembled where they cupped my jaw. I shook my head, though the truth was my wrists burned from the rope, my muscles ached from being bound. None of that mattered when he was here, when I could finally breathe again. The ropes came off in one sharp movement, his fingers quick and precise. The moment I was free, he pulled me into his chest, holding me so tightly it hurt. I felt the rumble in his chest. Not quite a growl, not quite a sigh, something primal, something only for me. "I found you," he murmured, and I realized then, he hadn't needed directions. He hadn't needed help. He'd found me through the bond, following the faint thread between us like it was a lifeline. We didn't leave immediately. He stayed there, crouched on the basement floor with me in his arms, his scent flooding the space until the other alphas backed away completely, eyes down. No one dared come near. When we finally stood, his arms stayed firm around my waist, guiding me out like he was afraid I might vanish if he let go. Outside, the night air hit my face, cool and sharp, but his scent clung to me, stronger than ever. The car was waiting. He didn't speak during the ride, his hand still on me, thumb brushing slow circles against my side as if to reassure himself I was real. Only when we were inside his home, not my apartment, his, did he finally let me go enough to see my face fully. "You thought I wouldn't come," he said quietly, not a question. I swallowed, unable to answer. His eyes darkened and his pheromones swelled again, slower now, like a tide coming in. He stepped closer until my back hit the wall, his hand coming up to rest beside my head. "You're mine," he said, and this time there was no anger in it, only certainty. "No matter what I said before, no matter what happens after this, you are mine." My chest ached with something I didn't have words for. And when he leaned in, pressing his forehead to mine, I let myself close my eyes and breathe him in, letting the bond hum between us, stronger than it had ever been. Because even if he'd tell me tomorrow to forget again, even if he'd go back to being the cold stranger in daylight, tonight there was no doubt. I was his, completely. The storm had passed, but its weight still lingered in the air. His scent was softer now, calmer, like the steady warmth of a fire after a night of rain. Vanilla-cedar wrapped around me as he sat on the edge of the bed, head bowed, fingers curled tightly in the sheet between us. We hadn't spoken much since the rescue. He had stayed close, always near enough to touch, always watching me like I might vanish again. But tonight something in him had cracked. "I have to tell you," he said finally, voice low and raw. I turned toward him, my chest tightening at the look on his face, not the cold, untouchable alpha the world saw, but the man beneath trembling. "I was engaged," he began, each word sounding like it scraped against his throat, "to an alpha woman, for a business merger. It was arranged before I even met you." My stomach knotted, but I stayed silent. His hands curled tighter in the sheets. That night, my rut wasn't an accident. He lifted his gaze, shame and longing warring in his eyes. I'd been taking suppressants for months, fighting it, fighting you, but I stopped suddenly. I wanted to end my biology, to be able to stand beside her without this out, without this, without me, I thought, and the ache was sharp. His breath shook, the withdrawal hit me hard, and when I saw you, it was over. My body, my soul, everything in me. His voice broke and he pressed his forehead into my shoulder. "Everything about me chose you." I felt the damp warmth of his tears seeping through my shirt. My hand moved on its own, fingers brushing through his hair, holding him close. "Then why run from me after?" My voice came out quieter than I meant, more fragile. "Because I thought I could protect you by staying away." His grip on me tightened, but I was wrong. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his jaw clenched, eyes burning with something dangerous. "The kidnapping, it was them, her family. They knew about the bond. They wanted you gone, so I would have no reason to refuse the marriage." The truth settled heavy in my chest, colder than the basement air I had been locked in. But before the fear could take root again, he cupped my face, forcing me to meet his gaze. "They underestimated me," he said, voice steady now, a quiet promise woven into every word. "They thought I'd choose power over you. But they don't understand you are my power." The bond between us pulsed, warm and alive, filling the space like a second heartbeat. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine, his scent blooming richer, fuller, claiming the air entirely. "I'm ending it," he whispered. "The engagement, the merger, all of it. I don't care what I lose, I've already decided." I searched his face. The man who had once told me to forget, who had turned away like I was nothing, now looking at me as if I was the only thing that mattered. "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because I'm done hiding," he said, "and because I need you to know I will never let anyone take you from me again." The words sank deep, settling somewhere my doubts couldn't touch. We didn't speak after that. He guided me down onto the bed, his arm pulling me into him until we were tangled together, chest to chest. The sheets beneath us were fresh, still carrying the faint scent of detergent, but already they were changing, already the air was thick with us. His hand rested at the small of my back, firm and grounding. My fingers traced the edge of his jaw, memorizing the feel of him in this moment, open, unguarded, mine. For the first time, there was no rush, no frantic heat, just the quiet certainty that we were exactly where we were meant to be. I breathed him in, the scent of vanilla cedar now inseparable from my own, and felt the bond hum like a steady flame between us. Sometimes love isn't soft, sometimes it's a fight, bloody, painful, costly. But as he held me, his lips brushing the top of my head, I understood. Sometimes it's worth every scar it leaves behind.